أهلا بيكم معانا النهاردة. بنغوص في حتة كده مؤثرة قوي من رواية كلاسيكية. معانا فصل بيورينا بطل القصة الشاب بيب في موقف خلينا نقول صعب شوية. الفصل ده بيحكي عن زيارة مفاجئة من شخص عزيز جدا على بيب من زمان، الحداد الطيب جو جارجري. الزيارة دي حصلت بعد ما بيب ساب حياته القديمة خالص وبدأ حياة تانية خالص في لندن.
أيوة بالظبط، واللقاء ده بقى بيكشف كتير قوي. مهمتنا هنا نحاول نفهم مشاعر بيب وقتها اللي كانت متلخبطة قوي بصراحة. هنشوف ازاي طموحه الجديد ده انه يبقى جنتلمان زي ما كان بيحلم خلاه يصطدم بجذوره البسيطة ويحس بالخجل.
وهنا بنشوف الصدام ده بوضوح. لما جت رسالة بيدي اللي بتقول لبيب إنه جو جايله، الرسالة نفسها كان فيها دفء وحنين كده. وجو كمان أصر يضيف جملة وات لاركس كأنه بيسترجع ذكرياتهم زمان. تفتكر بيب حس بنفس الحاجة؟
لا خالص، رد فعله كان قلق وحرج فظيع. بصي، لدرجة انه فكر يدفع فلوس عشان الزيارة دي اصلا ما تتمش. الاهم عنده ما كانش اللقاء قد ما كان خايف ان حد من معارفه الجداد، وخصوصا بقى الشخص اللي ما بيطقوش ده درامل، يشوف جو بمنظره البسيط. وده بيورينا على طول ازاي الواحد لما بيتنقل اجتماعيا ممكن يحس بغربة عن ماضيه، وممكن كمان للأسف يخجل من أقرب الناس ليه.
وفعلا بيب استعد للزيارة دي، بشكل فيه مبالغة شوية. جاب خادم مخصوص سماه بيبر عشان المظاهر طبعا. ولما جو وصل، طريقة طلوعه السلم لوحدها كانت غريبة، ماشي ببطء ومتردد كأنه مش في مكانه. والوصف بتاع وقفته عند الباب وهو بيتلمس اسم بيب كده، دي تفاصيل معبرة قوي.
ولما دخل الأوضة التناقض كان فظيع. حماس جو وفرحته الحقيقية ببيب قصاد ارتباك بيب اللي كان واضح زي الشمس. جو مسك ايد بيب بحرارة وكل حب، بس فضل مسك القبعة بتاعته بإيدين الاتنين. الكتب وصفها زي عش طائر كأنها الأمان بتاعه.
تعبير دقيق قوي.
وديكنز هنا شاطر قوي في استخدام التفاصيل الصغيرة دي. القبعة هنا رمز الارتباط جو بماضيه البسيط اللي بيب بيحاول يهرب منه.
وجو نفسه كان واخد باله من الفرق ده. قلب براءة كده البيب ازاي انه كبر وبقى جنتل فوكت، كلمة حتى قاعد يدور عليها شوية عشان يلاقيها.
أيوة، وده بيوري بساطته وإدراكه للتغيير اللي حصل بمنتهى التلقائية.
والفجوة دي والإحساس بالغربة ده اللي كان الأول مجرد توتر جوه بيب، ظهر بقى بشكل مؤلم واضح قوي للكل على الفطار.
وقت الفطار لما كان هيربرت صديق بيب موجود،
الموقف بقى أصعب.
بالظبط، جو بقى رسمي زيادة عن اللزوم، لدرجة انه بقى يقول لبيب سيدي. كان واضح قوي انه متوتر ومش على بعضه خالص وهو بياكل وبيشرب. ده حتى القبعة بتاعته فضلت تقع كل شوية من على الرف اللي حطها عليه. التفاصيل دي مهمة قوي. تعليق السذاج بتاع تصميم المخزن اللي قال عليه اركيتكترول اكشيل رال، الكلمة الغريبة دي.
ارتباكه في الكلام، قعدته على طرف الكرسي بعيد عن الترابيزة، كل دي حاجات بتعكس إحساسه العميق إنه مش في مكانه. بس السؤال بقى، هل اللوم كله على جو؟ لا طبعا. المشكلة الأكبر كانت في بيب نفسه. بدل ما يحاول يطمن جو ويحتويه، كان هو نفسه غرقان في إحساسه بالضيق والخجل منه. هو ما وفرش لجو جو مريح، فبالتالي جو ما عرفش يبقى على طبيعته. تصرف بيب البارد ده هو اللي خلى جو يحس بالغربة أكتر.
صح. وبعد ما هيربرت مشي عشان يسيبهم لوحدهم شوية، جو أخيرا قال سبب الزيارة.
قال إن الأنسة هافشام عايزة تشوف بيب عشان استيلا رجعت.
بالظبط. لكن المشهد الأهم بقى والدراما الحقيقية كانت في لحظة الوداع.
مشهد قوي فعلا. جو رفض يقعد الغدا أصلا، وقبل ما يمشي قال كلمتين بساط بس ليهم معنى كبير قوي. اعترف كده إن الدنيا فيها فروقات ومقامات، في حداد وفي صايغ ذهب، كل واحد وليه مكانه. والأهم إنه اعترف بغلطته هو شخصيا في الموقف ده.
أيوة، قال كلام معناه أنا اللي غلطان باللبس ده وفي المكان ده. مكاني الطبيعي في الورشة بتاعتي، هناك أنا تمام ومش هتلاقي فيا عيب. الكلام ده بيوري نبل وكرامة حقيقية عند جو. حتى بيب نفسه اتفاجئ. لحظة بتوضح مين فعلا الجنتلمان الحقيقي هنا، بعيد عن الشكل والمظاهر.
وبعدها لمس جبهة بيب بحنية كده ومشي بسرعة، كأنه مش عايز يطول اللحظة دي. ولما بيب حاول يلحقه كان جو مشي خلاص.
المشهد ده بيلخص ببراعة الصراع الأساسي في الرواية دي، ويمكن في حياتنا كمان أحيانا. التوتر اللي بين طموحاتنا الشخصية وبين جذورنا اللي شكلتنا. وبيورينا قد ايه التغير الاجتماعي ممكن تبقى اختبار قاسي للعلاقات الإنسانية الحقيقية.
فعلا، لحظة تخلي الواحد يفكر، هل لما ظروفنا بتتغير ده لازم يغير نظرتنا للناس اللي بنحبهم، الناس اللي ليهم قيمة عندنا؟ وإيه هي القيمة الحقيقية اللي بنقيس بيها كرامة البني آدم؟ سؤال مهم ومحتاج تأمل.
You know how sometimes you just want to grasp something, really get it, but wading through everything feels like too much.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
Well, that's what we do here. Welcome to the deep dive. We do the digging so you get the understanding fast.
And today we're diving into a really rich piece of writing. It's a personal story, but it touches on things I think we can all relate to.
We're looking at this first-hand account from a character, Pip, right at this sort of crossroads in his life.
Exactly. It all centers around this one specific moment, this encounter he has.
It kicks off with a letter, doesn't it? News that his childhood friend, Joe Gargery, his brother-in-law, actually.
That's right, Joe. He's coming up to London for a visit, along with someone called Mr. Wopsle.
Okay, so what's our mission here? What are we trying to unpack with this?
We're really aiming to get inside Pip's head. Understand his reaction to Joe's visit. What does it tell us about how he's changed, his, social climbing, and maybe how he really feels underneath it all?
All right, let's dig into that letter. It's actually written by someone else, Biddy, for Joe.
Right. Joe's not much of a writer himself.
And it lays out the plan. Meet at Barnard's Hotel, Tuesday, 9 a.m. There's news about Pip's sister, mentions of them talking about him back home in the evenings.
That sounds quite warm, thinking of him.
It does. And then Joe adds his own bit at the end, just what larks.
What larks. It's so simple, but it speaks volumes, doesn't it? That shared past, the maybe simpler times they remember. Joe sounds quite excited in his own way.
Totally. But Pip, his reaction is not what you'd expect. He says he feels considerable disturbance, some mortification, and a keen sense of incongruity.
Mortification, that's a strong word.
Right. He even admits he'd have paid good money, just to keep Joe away.
Wow. That tells you immediately that something fundamental has shifted for Pip. He's not seeing Joe through those old, affectionate eyes anymore.
No, it's like his new social anxieties are completely taking over.
Exactly. He's worried about how Joe will fit in, or rather how he won't fit into Pip's new world.
And get this, he's actually relieved Joe's coming to Barnard's Inn and not his place in Hammersmith.
Why is that?
Because he wants to avoid running into this other guy, Bentley Drummel. Someone Pip clearly can't stand.
Huh. So he's worried about what Drummel will think of Joe.
Seems like it. Pip even has this thought, pretty cynical actually, that our worst weaknesses and meannesses are usually committed for the sake of the people whom we most despise.
That's quite an insight into his own state of mind. He's prioritizing the opinion of someone he hates over the feelings of someone he supposedly cares about.
Yeah, it really shows how tangled up he is in keeping up appearances and pressure of this new identity.
And it spills out in other ways too, right? Like his living situation.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey.
He's apparently been going nuts decorating his chambers, constantly changing things, spending a fortune with the upholsterer, described as unnecessary and inappropriate.
Right, like he's trying to build a physical barrier between himself and his past, trying to create this stage set for his new life.
A very expensive stage set.
Yeah.
And he's even got himself a servant boy now. The boy in boots.
Ah, yes, the Avenger.
Huh? Yeah, Pip calls him his avenging phantom. He even jokes about how much effort it takes just to feed the kid. It's like he's bought the props, but he hasn't quite figured out the play yet.
It sounds almost like a burden, this performance of being a gentleman. The boy, the decorating. It's all part of the act, but it seems to be weighing on him.
Okay, so fast forward to Tuesday morning. Joe's due any minute.
Pip's getting ready.
Oh yeah, he's fussing over the sitting room, making the breakfast table look grand, trying to project this image of effortless refinement.
But the setting itself isn't quite cooperating, is it?
Not at all. It's dreary outside, raining, and the building, Barnard's Inn, is described as shedding sooty tears. It kind of punctures the whole illusion he's trying to create.
That contrast is brilliant. The internal effort versus the external reality. It highlights the artificiality of it all.
And Pip's feeling the pressure. He's anxious, almost wants to bolt, even with his Avenger there for backup.
And then Joe arrives.
Yep. Footsteps on the stairs. Joe reading the names on the doors, tracing Pip's name. You can picture him. And then a faint knock.
And the boy, Pepper, announces him.
Mr. Gargery. And in comes Joe, apparently beaming, boots wiped, ready with a handshake. Pip calls the last patented pump.
Aha! You can just see it. Joe, all warmth and maybe a bit awkward, but genuine. And the hat. Right. He's got his hat.
Oh, the hat. He's clutching it carefully like it's a bird's nest with eggs in it. Clearly a bit uncomfortable trying to do the right thing.
And his first words to Pip.
He looks Pip up and down and says he's growed and that swelled and that... He pauses here. Gentle folk.
Gentle folks. You had to think about that one.
Yeah, and then he declares Pip a honor to your king and country. It sounds so incredibly sincere.
Compared to how Pip responds.
Pip gives him some quick, probably quite dismissive compliment. The gap between their sincerity is just huge right there.
Joe's trying so hard to bridge that gap, using words he thinks fit Pip's new status, but they just highlight the distance.
Joe gives updates on Pip's sister and on Biddy. Then he mentions Mr. Wopsle again.
Ah, the actor.
Apparently Wopsle's left the church, had a drop, as Joe puts it delicately, and gone into play acting.
Ha, had a drop. Joe's way of putting things.
And Joe's actually brought a playbill. He proudly gives Pip this crumpled bill announcing Wopsle as the celebrated provincial amateur of Roshian renown.
Oh, brilliant! The grandeur of the title versus the crumpled reality.
Joe even gives a review of the performance. Sounds like it was chaos. The audience threw orange peels.
A whole peck of them.
And someone kept shouting, "Amen," during the ghost scene in Hamlet. Joe found it very distracting.
It's hilarious, but it also paints such a vivid picture of the world Joe still belongs to, the world Pip's trying to escape.
And Joe defends Wopsle's tiny mourning hat so earnestly. It's quite sweet, his loyalty.
Then Pip's friend Herbert comes in.
Yes, Herbert arrives. And Joe's awkwardness just ramps up. He sort of shrinks back from shaking Herbert's hand, still clinging to that hat.
Poor Joe, just trying to navigate this completely new social territory.
He calls Herbert Sir, asks if they get your elfs, meaning healths, in this close spot.
Haha, get your elves.
And then says the inn isn't fit for a pig. Probably not the most diplomatic thing to say.
Well, maybe honest. But yeah, you can feel his discomfort. And the hat saga continues.
Oh, the hat has its own adventure. Joe struggles to find a place for it, puts it on the mantelpiece.
Where it keeps falling off.
Constantly. And the conversation is just as stilted. They ask if he wants tea or coffee.
And Joe asks if coffee is a little eating.
Yes. Like, is it substantial? He's just so out of his element with these London breakfast rituals.
The hat becomes this perfect symbol of him being out of place, doesn't it? A physical manifestation of his awkwardness.
He even fumbles answering when he arrived in town.
Yeah.
And talks about visiting the Blacking Warehouse with Wopsle, saying it wasn't as architectural as he expected.
Laurel. Love it.
Meanwhile, the hat's journey ends tragically in the slot basin.
Oh, no.
And all this time, Pip is just watching, observing Joe's stiff collar, his strange manners at breakfast, but seemingly with no clue that he's the reason Joe is acting so weirdly.
That lack of self-awareness from Pip is key, isn't it? He's so wrapped up in his own performance and embarrassment, he can't see Joe's genuine effort or his own role in making Joe feel so uncomfortable.
It's a real blind spot. Then things take a turn. Joe tries to be formal, maybe mirroring Pip, and calls him Sir.
How does Pip react?
He corrects him, kind of sharply. Pip, he insists. And he sees something in Joe's look then, something faintly like reproach.
A flicker of recognition, perhaps, that despite the awkwardness, Joe has this inherent dignity.
Exactly. It's a powerful little moment. Joe finally gets to the point of his visit.
The real reason he came.
Yes. Miss Havisham wants to see him. The message came via Pumblechook, who Joe mentions is taking all the credit for Pip's good fortune now.
Classic Pumblechook. But Joe's affection still comes through, even mixed with the awkward formality.
Definitely. He keeps slipping back into calling him Pip, then catching himself and saying Sir. It's quite touching, really.
So Miss Havisham's message.
Estella is home, and she wants to see Pip.
Wow. Okay. That's huge for Pip. Estella is kind of the whole point of his transformation in his mind.
Exactly. So this news, delivered by Joe in this awkward setting, it just throws everything into contrast. And apparently it was Biddy who urged Joe to come tell Pip in person.
Good old Biddy, trying to maintain that connection.
So as Joe delivers the message, and then he gets ready to leave.
Doesn't wait around.
No. He stands up and gives Pip this incredibly sincere blessing, wishing him well, hoping he prospers to a greater and a greater height.
That's pure Joe, just genuine goodwill despite everything.
Pip asks him to stay for dinner, maybe feeling a bit guilty, but Joe says no.
He knows it's time to go. He understands he doesn't belong there in that specific setting. It's sad, but also shows his self-awareness.
Their eyes meet then, and Joe puts out his hand, and Pip says the Sir melts out of him.
A moment of real connection again.
And then Joe says something amazing. He explains why they have to be separate now. He talks about life being made of welded partings, how there are different kinds of smiths like himself, the blacksmith, and how these divisions are just necessary.
That's incredibly insightful. Using his own trade, the forge, as a metaphor for life and social divides, it shows such depth.
He takes the blame for any awkwardness during the visit, insists it's not pride, but that he needs to be where he feels right. He says Pip will never see him in those clothes again because he's wrong, out of his forge, out of his element.
What a powerful statement of self-knowledge and dignity. He understands who he is and where he belongs, even if Pip is struggling with that himself.
He just asks Pip to remember him as he really is, the blacksmith, nothing more.
A plea to hold on to the truth of their past, of his identity.
Then he touches Pip gently on the forehead, like a final blessing, and he's gone.
And Pip's reaction?
Instant regret. He runs out after him, but Joe's vanished into the London streets. It's a really moving end to the whole encounter.
Absolutely gut-wrenching in its own quiet way. That final touch, the immediate regret. It says so much.
So, wrapping this up, what do we really take away from this deep dive into their meeting?
Well, it starkly shows that gap opening up between them, doesn't it? The painful consequence of Pip's social climbing.
Yeah, you see Pip's ambition, maybe even his snobbery, bumping right up against Joe's fundamental decency, and actually his self-awareness.
Joe comes across with so much more dignity in the end, despite the awkwardness. He knows who he is. Pip. Well, Pip seems lost, trying to be someone else.
And for you listening, this isn't just about characters in an old book. Think about how do big changes in our own lives, maybe moving up socially or changing careers, affect our oldest relationships?
Right. Have you ever felt that kind of awkwardness, that incongruity Pip feels, maybe looking back at where you came from or when interacting with people from a different part of your life?
It makes you question what real connection means, doesn't it? Beyond the surface stuff, beyond the clothes of the setting. What does it mean to be authentic, both to yourself and to the people who knew you way back when?
Definitely something to chew on. Those welded partings Joe talked about, maybe thinking about the Smiths and the necessary divisions, but also the connections that endure in your own life.